I'm busting out on this L7 square. Freaks like you and I can never funk on that. We're busting out. You know what we're busting out of? High gas prices. Because guess what? We're down to under $2 a gallon right here at the get-go, just outside of downtown Pittsburgh, the home of Brett Paradise. And in another edition of Trouble in Paradise, with yours truly, and my girl behind the camera, Miss Sasha Fierce, the backer since day one, Sasha Fierce. Gentlemen, let me tell you something. Get yourself a Sasha Fierce. She's a ride or die chick. You want one, you need one, you got to have one. Mwah. Anywho, you know, I'm sitting here thinking through all this coronavirus, because you can see I don't have my bandana, I don't have my mask on, because we're out in the fresh air. We don't have that on. We're not here to talk about that. You know what we're here to talk about? We're here to talk about wrestling, as always, as we have for 40-some videos now. We're going on 50. We're getting south of 100. But I'm here to talk about factions in wrestling. Factions that have been going on since the days of George Hackenschmidt and Frank Gotch. Okay? I'm here talking about any time there was a faction in wrestling. It's four to five to 3 to 4 to 5, any combination thereof, that come together and become one force in a promotion, in a business, in a territory, wherever you have. And the most preeminent one that we know of is the Four Horsemen. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, the Enforcer, Tully Blanchard, the coolest heel ever, and Barry Windham, the Widowmaker. That incarnation of the Four Horsemen is the best one. Now there's factions that have gone from the range of really, really good to not so good. Really, really good would be that one that I just named just now. The Four Horsemen. Woo! And there have been many machinations, many takes on the Four Horsemen that have included guys such as Dean Malenko, Sid Vicious, Lex Luger, and Mr. Crispin. You know who I'm talking about. But the greatest one of all time, the GOAT of factions, is the Nature Boy, Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, and the coolest heel ever, Tully Blanchard. There's been other ones such as D-Generation X. And again, multiple forms of D-Generation X, multiple reboots and retakes. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's 4 of them. Ravishing Rick, the 9th Wonder of the World, China, Triple H, yes, I know, Reign of Terror, and the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, mark out moment. Now, there have been times where, if you can remember, in Vincelandia, back in 1997, there were some times where there wasn't quite the great factions. There were things like the oddities that I've described earlier. There is Los Boricuas, Savio Vega, and a couple of jobbers that you don't even remember the name. You just remember the one guy that had all the back hair. All right? Then you had your DOA, the Disciples of Apocalypse. Ron and Don Harris, back known as Chains and 8-Ball and Skull and Crush. Then you had the Nation of Domination, which begat the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, but the Nation of Domination, not so much. Okay? You had factions like that. Then you had factions like the Nexus. The Nexus, which was killed by Super Cena. Not so good. The Core, which was begat from the Nexus, which had the ugliest t-shirts ever. Then you had the League of Nations, which lasted all of about 2 months on Monday Night Raw, from 2014 to 2016. There have been times where factions have totally flopped. Just like the Miz Taraj, which was not. These are factions that were just, it's basically, sometimes it's just you take a leader and then you grab a bunch of other jobbers and put them alongside, and that raises up their level. New World Order, another perfect example of guys that were originally Hall, Nash, Hogan. Then you throw in DiBiase, X-Pac, and that was fine. But then you had to throw in and water it down to the point where it became not worth a damn. Then you had the NWO Red and Back, the Wolfpack. Not so much. These are all factions that at the base of what a faction is supposed to be in wrestling. 4 guys that all come together that are greater, each individual when put together are greater than the sum of its parts, okay? What a team is supposed to be, a force in wrestling, a global force, no pun intended, supposed to all come together and create something and make an impact in wrestling. And there are ranges from good to not so good. The best one of all time, without a doubt, is the original 4 Horsemen that I described earlier. There are many forms, whether they be bad or good. Right now, in AEW, you have the Inner Circle. And it basically comes down to having a leader, then you have a strongman, then you have your tag team, and then you have your mid-card title guy. Your Tully Blanchard, your Sammy Guevara, your X-Pac, or 6, 1, 2, 3 Kid, whatever Sean Waltman decides to call himself. You have all of these elements and then you put them all together, and that's what makes a great faction, along with great writing, Vince Russo. When you put these all together, that's what makes a faction truly great. And you know, I was thinking of a personal, in wrestling, what I would call my own faction. And I think Paradise Alley has got a good ring to it. Don't you? Come on. Let me just take a wild guess. I'm thinking maybe somebody like a Brian Cage would be my heater. He'd be the bad guy. I'd be the leader. I'd have Brian Cage as my heater. My mid-card. Who could I get? Could I get Jack Blaze? Can I get somebody? Can I get a Tommy Celsius? And then your deranged wild man. I think we all know who that would be in my stable. I think Mr. Bounce, I might have to give you a call. And if we got to deal with somebody like a natural born killer, like a little Mr. New Jack, anybody? Anybody? Come on, bruh. Let's see where the money's at, brother. Impact in wrestling, factions, good or bad, either way, they all create memories. They all create something in our hearts and our minds. And in this world that we call right now, even though we're on shutdown, we call wrestling the escape from everything that's on our outside. And you know every single day that we love every minute of it. That is all for today. For now, this has been the latest edition. Thank you, Sasha Fierce. You've done wonderful. She's always got my back. Find yourself one of those. All right, like, share, and subscribe. And it's going down, 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 down. Gonna put you in the ground.